Hey there, music maker. In today's video, you're going to learn how to play a chord melody arrangement to the Western swing standard Right or Wrong. This is a jazz tune from the 20s that Bob Wills rekindled in the 1930s and 40s, and today's melody is heavily based on the vocal delivery of Tommy Duncan, the vocalist for Bob Wills. I stole some simple voice leading tools from Bob Wills' mandolin player Tiny Moore, as well as some great chord shapes from Jethro Burns. So I think today's arrangement is going to give you a great idea for how to execute a chord melody arrangement of a vocal tune. My name is Griffin and welcome to Mandolin Secrets. If this is your first time here at the channel, hit that subscribe button below and the bell notification button. That way, you'll get notifications when we upload our weekly mandolin lessons. Also, if you're looking for educational tools like PDFs of the tab and sheet music for today's lesson, as well as all of our other lessons, head to mandolinsecrets.com. You'll find links below in the description. There, you'll get access to all of those assets, backing tracks, and access to our community of mandolin players just like you to help you along your mandolin journey. Alright, mandolin player, if this is your first time hearing the tune Right or Wrong, I would suggest pausing this video now and checking out our lesson on the single note melody for this tune. That'll give you a really good idea for the single notes that Tommy Duncan, Bob Wills' vocalist, would have chosen to sing over this tune. Today we're going to take those exact same notes from that arrangement and put some simple tools below them on the G and D strings of our mandolin to dress this melody up and make it sound something akin to what Jethro Burns would play on this tune. Let's go ahead and hear this arrangement at full tempo, and then I'll go through it out of time to show you some of the tools that I think are worthy of your study. Alright, there we have it, the chord melody arrangement that you're going to learn how to execute here today. If you're a little overwhelmed, never fear. I'm going to steer you through these chord shapes one at a time so that we can learn some of the targets that we have to hit as we progress through this arrangement. So if we look at the first couple measures of this tune, we have kind of a syncopated intro. If I'm counting in, the first two notes happen on the ands or the offbeats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So that can be a little tricky if you're not familiar with how to play syncopated notes like that. You might want to grab your metronome and loop that one just to get a good feel for how to kick off the tune. Once you make it past the kickoff, we're going to land on a really interesting chord shape. This one is the E augmented chord. So the melody note that Tommy Duncan sings is a C note, but the band is actually playing an E7 chord behind him. If you put a C note on top of an E7 chord, we can view that as kind of like a B note that's been sharped, a sharp 5, or an augmented chord. If you're not familiar with augmented triads, that's simply just a root note, a major third, and then instead of a perfect fifth, E, G sharp, B, we would have E, G sharp, B sharp, or C. So that gives us a really interesting character to kind of start the tune off there, and all I'm doing is adding a G note and an E note, two of the chord tones below that. This is a chord shape that Jethro Burns really liked to use, and I think it's really appropriate here for this one. So if you ever have to play an augmented chord, just know that the middle finger note is the root note of this chord, so you can move this shape around the mandolin. So if we skip ahead to measure 3, the next chord shape that we have is actually a rootless inversion of an A7. So we simply are keeping what we call the guide tones in there, the 3rd and the 7th. So C sharp G, if we have an A7 chord, it's A, C sharp E, G, so 3rd and 7th. And then the melody note happens to be the 9, so it's this really cool, ethereal sounding chord shape that doesn't have a root note in it. So it can be confusing to find this one. So you have to find your third, and that's the lowest note. And if you don't know a lot of music theory, that can be a little hard, but just know that that's the construction of this chord shape. Now, if we move ahead a couple measures when we switch to that D7 chord, something that's really interesting about these guide tones of thirds and sevenths is if we're moving through a circle of fifths chord progression, meaning chord names that are next to one another along the circle of fifths. E to A to D to G. That's what we have in the A part here for this tune. So if we're moving from A to D, something really interesting happens with these guide tones. To make this relevant to a D7 chord, all we have to do is take these two notes and move them down a half step, and then they invert. This bottom note, C note, is the seventh of our D7, and that F sharp is the third of our D7. So we still have those guide tones, they're just flip-flopped. And this is an interesting way to move through circle of fifths chord progressions. So we can use that for chord melodies and know that we have a simple pattern that just moves down two strings like that if we're moving around the circle of fifths. All right, my friend, I think that's enough yakking for now. Let's go ahead and actually break this arrangement down. I'm going to play it at 200 beats per minute again for you, and then after that, we're going to cue up a version at 100 beats per minute. So just listen to this first one and try and let it soak into your ears, and then listen to the version at 100 beats per minute and try to play along. If that's still too fast, you can use the gear icon to slow this video down and take it at a more appropriate speed to you. Let's go ahead and dive into that fast version, okay? Alrighty, now that it's back in your ears, let's go ahead and check out the slow version at 100 beats per minute. There you have it, my mandolin friend. A chord melody arrangement of right or wrong that uses some neat descending guide tone chromaticism. Whew, that's a mouthful, isn't it? I hope that you've enjoyed this lesson and that you've gotten something out of it. This is definitely a tool that you can explore with other jazz or even bluegrass melodies. So drop us a comment below and let us know if you think this is a useful tool for your own mandolin playing. Thanks so much for checking this video out, but stick around, we've got more great content right here at Mandolin Secrets, okay? We'll catch you in the next video.